Also, we can cover by software tweaks such things as app edge tweaks, PHP version changes, PHP configuration changes, and finally, Magento is also software, isn't it? So we can consider Magento configuration or different tweaks inside Magento as software tweaks as well. Well, today I want to talk about Magento backend performance under the hood, so performance as it is. I'm not going to talk about full page cache or front-end performance, it's a different story. And as I promised to benchmarks, what about Magento 2 performance? Actually, it's good. It's tricky, but it's good. And I'm not going to compare Magento 1 and Magento 2 because it makes no sense. To have some numbers, we decided to create a small benchmark, and for this purpose we use Gatling. It's a software stress testing tool that allows to emulate user behavior on the side, emulate different user actions, create a concurrent calls to different URLs. Docker, it's a container management tool that allows to have different software environments and easily switch between them. And finally, our own custom Magento sample data generator that allows to generate a big amount of different entities such as customers, orders, products, etc. As a hardware configuration, we used two servers. They are almost identical except the disk drive. On the first one we have SSD, and on the second one a little bit slower hard drive. As for Gatling, we have created a scenario that goes through this list of steps, goes to home page, then visits category page, then goes to the product page, adds this product to the shopping cart, search for banned keyword, goes to login page, logs in, and being redirected to my account page. And to have a starting basis, we run the first benchmark for clean Magento 2 installation with standard Magento sample data installed. And on the following diagram, you can see the loading time of all pages in milliseconds. We have two slow pages here. It's search page and category page. And in the Gatling scenario, we used 20 concurrent calls for each of the pages just to create more loading and to have a more interesting results. That's why we have more or less big numbers here. As for the home page, it's also a little bit slow because, as you know, using sample data, standard sample data, we have a couple of products on the home page. It's featured products or so. And as for product page itself, it's quite fast. So as you can see, it's only at 100 milliseconds for 20 concurrent requests, and it's really impressive. And on the category page, in this particular case, we have only configurable products. And if we check profiler, built-in profiler, we find that there are three methods, the most slow methods of the page, and the bottleneck of the page is in these three methods. Okay, from time to time, different hosting providers allow us to choose between fast SSD drive or large, slow HDD drive. And how do you think? Will be SSD drive faster in Magento 2, just out of the box with sample data? Actually, yes. It's faster almost on all of the pages. And we have three main components in Magento that depends on the disk drive speed. Is database and the disk cache. We used the disk cache in both cases. So maybe if we use Redis, the situation will slightly change, but Redis, as well as any other software, also depends on the disk drive speed. Okay, let's forget about HHD. We live in 2016 and have even Magento 2 and PHP 7 released, so let's stick with more modern technologies. On the next step, we will generate more customers just to check how the big amount of customers affects the overall Magento performance, and we generated 400,000 customers. As you can see, the performance almost on all pages stays the same, except of last, let's say, 3 to pages that directly connected to operations with customer tables. And I know many people who believe in the following axiom: bigger database you have, slower performance you get. Actually, it's not always true. Let's imagine that we have 2 flat tables indexed by integer primary keys, and in one of these tables we have 10 records, and in the other one we have 10 million records. And we need to create simple select request to both of them just to get one record by its primary key. And actually request to the bigger table will be just maybe 0.1% slower in comparison with request to the smaller table. If you don't believe me, you can try it by yourself. The situation changes when we have a lot of joins, subsequent requests, and maybe requests using text field. No matter indexed this text field or not, they will be still slower in comparison with integer values. And here you can see a good example of it, because as you remember on the login page, we need to request a customer record by email, and email it's a text field. And on my account page, we have a lot of additional information, such as customer address, order data, and other, and we have a little bit complex requests there. That's why we have performance decrease on these pages. Well, let's get back to Redis. How do you think, which of these requests we can speed up just by enabling Redis? Anyone? To be honest, no one of them. So the question, why Redis does not give us some performance improvements? Because everyone talk about Redis. Everyone talk the Redis should be installed, and then you will have fast website. Actually, it's not true. Well, maybe we don't have much data, and let's move forward and generate more. Let's say it would generate 600,000 products and check the situation there. So the next diagram, you can see this, how the situation changes without Redis, just in comparison with big amount of customers. Now we have big amount of customers and big amount of products. As you can see, almost each page except the last 3 pages became slower, and that's another good example of the database requests I mentioned before. So when we work with products, we need to work with ERV structures, we need to load collections, and we have really complex requests with subsequent requests, with joins, etc. And we have products on home page, on category page, and obviously on the search result page. That's why we have this page much slower in comparison with few products. And that's the main reason why we usually recommend our customers to get rid of unnecessary products. What does it mean, unnecessary products? Sometimes we meet with the situation when customer have 30 or more % disabled products in the catalog. And it's a really good idea maybe to export all these products and import them again when they are really necessary, because it's a good way to speed up your catalog if you have really big amount of products. Well, let's try to enable Redis once again. Now we have not a big data, but more or less big store. So that's the result. What are we doing wrong here? Why Redis still does not affect the performance? After some investigation, we decided to check what we can additionally do with the cache. At this stage, we had maybe 15 or a little bit more megabytes of our disk cache directory size. And we wrote a small script that goes through catalog pages and warmed up the cache in that way. And after we have warmed up the cache, we had the following result. So it's comparison clean cache, disk cache. In this case, it's disk cache in comparison with warmed up cache. And it's not a surprise because in standard file systems, more files you have, slower search you get inside of these files. We performed the same operation with Redis, so we have warmed up the Redis cache and compared the caches, the warmed up states of both caches, this cache and the Redis cache. And finally we got benefit of using Redis. So as you can see, we have really, not significantly, but faster performance with using Redis. And as a conclusion, we can say that Redis is really effective if you have huge cache and if this cache more or less stable. If you know how Redis cache works, there's absolutely no magic. It's a key value storage. And if you need some record, you can request it by its key. And this approach is really effective with a big amount of data. Well, sometimes we met with the situation when just cache is being cleaned on some regular basis, let's say once per day by a cron job, and it's not the case where the Redis will be effective. So just keep in mind. Okay, in some of our projects we have interesting experience with using alternative database engines such as MariaDB, and we also decided to check its performance in our benchmark. And after we have switched to MariaDB, we have checked homepage, product pages, add to cart process just to ensure that everything works as it should. And after running the benchmark, we got the following numbers. Do you see something strange here? For some reason, the category page becomes significantly faster in comparison with other pages. And when we checked this page, we found there are only simple products, a set of simple products from absolutely different categories. I don't know why it happened, but after running the reindex process, we had correct set of products here. As I mentioned in one of my first slides, the main bottleneck here was in configurable products. So MariaDB, in result, didn't show some significant improvements. Okay, what else? There are many interesting solutions we can implement and try to speed up the performance before we decide to change hardware. We have tried memcached as a session storage, and we didn't get significant results with it. We also tried to implement master-slave replication for database and get almost the same results. Actually, the situation might be changed if we will test the same using checkout process and order placing process, because this benchmark doesn't cover these processes. Well, finally, we decided to go with more modern and interesting solution. We decided to switch to PHP 7 and then check the overall performance with PHP 7. And finally, it's the most valuable solution in our benchmark. As you can see, some pages are almost twice faster. And maybe it's a really good chance to give a PHP 7 a shot for Magento 2, because Magento 2 supports PHP 7 out of the box. And some people say that The performance is the same with PHP 7. I have tested, but I didn't get some significant results. Please make sure that you have opcache enabled in PHP 7, because by default, usually it's disabled in default PHP 7 installation. Without opcache, the performance will be the same as with PHP 5 or even slower. So PHP 7 have the half of its magic in opcache. Okay, so let's leave it as a happy end. Maybe in the future we will try some more interesting solutions like hip-hop virtual machine or other, and if you are interested in, you can check our blog. From time to time we are sharing our thoughts there. And if you are interested also in tools that used in the benchmark, you can get the Gatling scenario, the following link, and also you can download the sample data generator by the second link. Also feel free to contribute to this extension. We're always glad for good contribution from community side. And thank you. You can reach me by email or find me on Twitter, and if you have some questions, I will be glad to answer.